They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmers podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmers podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. Hopefully you're following along on either the Amazon podcasting app, or also on iHeartRadio podcasting app, Spotify, YouTube, Google, Apple. You know, where if you listen to podcasts, we're there. So stick around and pay attention to that. You can find us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, at the Benchwarmers Podcast. Twitter is at the BW Pod. So follow us along. We try to stay current. Big show in the first hour. We touched on, obviously, Super Bowl 55, the big news there, and Tom Brady becoming a little more of a football deity than he already was. The NFL awards, we kind of went over the 2021 Hall of Fame class: Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, Drew Pearson. The NFL award winners, and coming up, we also have our awards, the Benchies, in a little bit. Very exciting. Least Valuable Player, Give Your Contract Back Award, Freedom Award, Underachiever, Overachiever of the Year, Aaron Donald Award, Most Surprising Team, and Most Disappointing Team. So stick around for that. But right now, Jose, we're going to go through the NBA. This is just kind of around the NBA, just a little reaction, kind of keep us abreast of the season and keep everybody's heads in the game, because now that football's over, we're going to have nothing else to look forward to. So it's good that in a time when everyone's going to start tuning into basketball more, we kind of have a good idea of what's going on. So I'm going to read you some headlines and just some initial reaction, little quick reaction to each of these things. You know what you think and what you don't. So we'll start in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee Bucks, winners of the last 5 games, including a road win over Denver, and they're in control, resoundingly in control of the Central Division. Is this noteworthy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is this noteworthy, or actually, Philadelphia is also up there. They're 17 wins as of today. So Milwaukee's in where this is the Eastern Conference in total. So Philadelphia is still in first place in the Eastern Conference. Bucks are at 16-8 or second place. So
yeah, and they're still leading their division by. I mean, the next closest team in their division is Indiana at 12-12. Yeah. So it feels like Milwaukee's kind of figuring things out a little bit. Remember, they did switch point guards to start the season and are kind of playing with higher expectations. We'll see how this team continues to grow. I'm not really sure what to. I mean, it's the regular season. Like, yeah, we knew there would be a top 4 seed. Like, none of this is really surprising. They have games coming up against Phoenix and the Jazz over their next 2 games are Phoenix and the Jazz, and after that, the schedule kind of lightens up. So if they can maybe split those 2 games, and they have a chance to go on a run. But I'm not overly surprised that they're in first place in a pretty weak division.
Yeah, I mean, that's, Giannis is still Giannis. He's unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
Drew Holiday, that they mortgaged their entire future for, he seems like he's playing well. For the regular season, he's 16.4 points a game. It's okay. He's 38% from 3. Almost 5 rebounds a game, 5.5 assists a game. So he's doing okay. I don't think that he's quite paying off to the level that they paid for him yet. But,
no.
It's, I guess, maybe two threes make a 2, between him and Chris Middleton. Maybe kind of 2 number 3 guys can create sort of a 2 guy for Giannis.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Chris Middleton, to me, you traded 2 first-round picks for Drew Holiday. He shouldn't be your 3rd best player. That's the way I feel about that trade, because Chris Middleton's definitely their 2nd best player. So,
Boston has recent struggles, 2-4 over the last 6 games, but they did beat the Warriors and the Clippers. So, what are your thoughts on Boston at 12-10 right now?
They just need Kemba Walker to be Kemba Walker and be the player that he's capable of being. He was injured to start the season. He's clearly not back to full health. He's averaging just over 15 points per game. And you look at his last 4 games, he's just not shooting the ball well. In his last 4 games, he's 26 of 69 from the floor, which is 37%, which is just terrible in the NBA. They need him to be Kemba if they want to have any chance of getting back to the conference finals, especially when you look at the Sixers are playing much better. The Nets are a threat right now. And I mean, honestly, the Bucks are looking like they're better than the Celtics at this point. Both of our picks to go to the NBA Finals this season. So they just need their big three to stop being a medium three and step it up and become a big three again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Kemba is sort of the unsung hero that, we see Jaylen Brown and
Jason Tatum.
Jeez, I don't know what, I can't even tell you the name I was thinking.
Fine.
Yeah, Jason Tatum to kind of stick around, but Kemba Walker's kind of the quietly the engine that drives that team, and he's their point guard, so it makes sense. I do think that it's a marathon, not a sprint for a team like the Celtics. I think that they know that they're good enough, just get into the playoffs. It's more important to make the playoffs as a lower seed healthy than to kind of go all out and end up, as a 1 or 2 seed. It's, at least to my mind, that's how I would be viewing this, sort of that San Antonio Greg Popovich look. So I do think that, they, as long as they make the playoffs, they'll be able to make some noise in the playoffs. But yeah, I think you're right. Kemba's the key to that entire success story. Staying in the East, Kevin Durant has missed the last week due to COVID yet again, or COVID-related reasons, contact tracing, things like that. Nets have lost 3 of their last 4. Getting worried about the Nets?
No, this is a team I'm not really worried about at all. It is concerning that Durant keeps having to miss time for COVID stuff. So that aside, the Nets are going to be a top 4 seed at worst. The East, if you look at the Eastern Conference right now, the top 4 seeds, I think it's in order. It's Philly, Milwaukee, the Nets, and then Boston.
Yeah.
After that, everyone's below 500, at 500 or below 500. This is going to be a conference that comes down to the top 4 seeds, and I have no worries about them making the playoffs. They'll get there. It's kind of just like you said. They just need to get to the playoffs, and then I don't know anyone who wants to see Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden in the postseason.
Yeah, and literally everything I just said about the Celtics goes double for the Nets because, Kevin Durant, just be healthy. Just stay healthy, that includes COVID. So whatever you got to do, just get yourself together. Kyrie, is a little fragile at times. So do whatever, load management, whatever you need to do, just get to the postseason. And James Harden is durable during the regular season, but we've seen it, how many times on the Rockets where it just feels like he just burns himself out doing too much regular season. So, hopefully that with these other 2 amazing scorers on his team, that he won't feel so much pressure to try to score 37 points a game and take 75 shots, but because again, it'd be nice to see him with some energy to actually make some damage, some noise in the playoffs instead of looking like he's gassed, midway through the first round. And it's
completely agree.
Yeah. It would just be nice to see. And I think that once they get there, they'll be able to turn it on. I do still worry about their defense, but I think as the season goes on, I think those guys are smart enough to realize that that's the problem. Scoring is not the problem. They're not completely devoid of self-awareness to the point where they're not aware that they're giving up too many points. So I think that somewhere along the way, especially Kevin Durant is going to just kind of say, okay, that's enough. We can score 140, but we just have to not let up 150. So yeah, I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, agreed.
Little Eastern Conference trade talk. This piqued my interest a little bit. Derrick Rose was traded to the New York Knicks to be reunited with Tom Thibodeau, who was the coach that coached Derrick Rose when he won his MVP season with the Bulls. This, I don't know, it is the Knicks. So I don't, it's tough to say that is important. But do you have a reaction to this? Does it not matter?
Yeah. I like this move. I like this move from the Knicks' perspective. Believe it or not, they have the best defense in the NBA right now.
You're right.
That's Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau, has got his fingerprints all over this. You look at just based on points allowed per game, right? So obviously there's other metrics and things like that, but just the simple. This is how many points they're allowing per game. They have the best defense in the NBA. But on the other side, they have one of the worst offenses in the NBA, especially in efficiency. Now, Derrick Rose is not going to add any efficiency to your offense. But they were just in desperate need of someone else who can just put the ball in the basket. You only give up a second-round pick, which is basically like you're lucky if your second round pick even becomes a starter in the NBA. They reunite Rose with Tom Thibodeau, where that's when he was at his best. I think the Knicks are right there in the postseason race. They're currently the number 9 seed, and I just said only the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference are above 500. The Knicks can make the playoffs this year. Now, I don't know if they want to make the playoffs, but the way the NBA has set up the lottery, it doesn't really pay the tank as much as it did. If I'm the Knicks, I try and make the playoffs, and I think this is the right move to make.
Yeah, Derrick Rose, we forget how good he was. I mean, his MVP year, he averaged 25 points a game. The year after that, he averaged almost 22. Then he hurt his ACL and was out. And then, a few years after that, he was injured again. But the last 3 seasons, he was 18 points, 18.1 points, and 14.2 points. The last 2 being on the Detroit Pistons, and the first of those 3 being on the Timberwolves. Yeah. So he's not been on great teams. And now with a coach that understands him, as we've seen in various sports, that matters. Having a coach that understands what you do well and what you don't do well, and not making you do things that you don't want to do or can't do or don't do as good as things you do well, is important. And the Knicks are still the Knicks, but RJ Barrett, it feels like he's on an island by himself, like you said, and he just needs. I think Derrick Rose, even if he can't score like he used to, he still has enough NBA experience where he might impart some of that onto Barrett, making him a better player just by virtue of osmosis. Aside from that, they don't have much.
They have Julius Randle as well. Julius Randle's a decent player, but I agree with you saying. He's going to be a nice bench presence, I think. I don't think he's going to be a starter for the team. I think he's going to just come off the bench and just add some energy, which is really lacking. If you look at a lot of NBA teams, they don't have bench scorers that would be able to match up with a Derrick Rose.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I do.
It's like no risk. There's no risk. What do you have to lose? A second round pick? Who cares?
Yeah, that's very true.
It's not the NBA. It's not the NFL.
Moving to the Western Conference, the Utah Jazz are still at the top of the best record in basketball. They're 19-5. They have some interesting games coming up in the next few matchups: Clippers, Lakers, Celtics, Milwaukee, and Philly. Are the Jazz for real?
Well, it depends on what you mean for real, right? Are they a team that can go and win a postseason series or 2? Yes. If you're saying, do I think that they're legitimate threats for the NBA championship? I don't know. I don't think that. And it's going to take them knocking off one of the, it's going to take them knocking off one of the Lakers or the Clippers or someone, something like that for me to really start buying in that they are, and it has to be in the postseason when that happens, because unless they end up going 73-9 or something like that, where I just have to say they're just amazing. If you say, hey, they're going to be against the Lakers in a series, I'm taking the Lakers, especially if everyone's at full strength. I will say this. The Jazz have completely outperformed any expectation I had for them. I didn't have them in the preseason top 10. That we already knew what to expect from Donovan and Gobert, but they're also getting a double-digit scoring from 4 other players on their team, and they're top 7 in offense and top 7 in defense. And only the Clippers can say the same in the whole entire NBA. So they're a good team. I don't know if they're great.
That's fair. Yeah, I think in the Western Conference lineup, it does seem like the Lakers and Clippers, again, it just like get to the playoffs. I feel like LeBron is aware that he doesn't have any. They don't need to go 73-9 or something, or 72-10 or whatever. It doesn't matter, because if he doesn't win, he's championship or bust. All the other accolades pale in comparison to getting another ring. So it might be a little bit of that combined with the Jazz they're a good team. We've seen good teams over the years beat star-studded teams in various forms. Obviously, the Detroit Pistons are the poster children of that, beating the Lakers, the Dream Team Lakers back in 06?
04.
Whatever. But 04. Yeah, it was 04. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting stat that I came across, because I was feeling bad about the Dallas Mavericks and that they're not that great. And I thought that Luka was going to be the MVP this year. And they're they're okay.
Still
He might be. They're 11-14, but I came across a stat: strength of schedule through week 7. The toughest schedule through 7 weeks. Number 1, Detroit. Number 2, Denver, and number 3, Dallas.
Okay.
The easiest schedule through 7 weeks: Philadelphia, number 1, Orlando, number 2, and Milwaukee, number 3. So
we should like mark this down and just come back to this in a month.
Yeah.
And see where these guys are. Like, it's just like, because you're right. That's something that we don't really think about, especially in the NBA with so many games. In the NFL, it's easy to, hey, 8 weeks, you played 8 games. It's just hard to track that in the NBA. It's very interesting.
Yes, and schedule strength is based on cumulative opponent record and adjusted for home versus away and days of rest before a game. So it's there. There's a little bit of subjectivity there, but for the most part, it's pretty. I would agree with those scoring parameters or those ranking parameters.
Yeah.
Lakers, speaking of, remain among the league's elite. They won 5 straight, even though Anthony Davis, who, by the way, Anthony Davis being injured or potentially injured or sitting out because of Achilles soreness is my low light of the week for the NBA. We have a highlight and a low light. He's missed 4 games this season, and it's a low light because I worry that, we saw him on a healthy tear last season and what he can be, obviously, with LeBron there when he's healthy. I hope that he doesn't become, sort of a Frankenstein where he's just patchwork and pieced together and he's injured constantly. Talking like Derrick Rose before, I hate to see his career kind of go down that same path where he's just this unbelievable talent and then just sidelined by injuries. So that's my low light of the week. Obviously, the offset to that is the Lakers don't seem to be fazed by it because a guy who's 10 years older than Anthony Davis is saying, "Don't worry, man, I got you," which is pretty good.
Yeah, LeBron's doing his best Brady impression.
Yeah.
He's doing his best Brady impression. I think that Anthony Davis is probably just missing time. I imagine if this was a playoff game or something like that, he might be out there. I think they're kind of taking the same approach, like, well, listen, if you have anything, if you have, your toenail is off because it got knocked off, you're sitting out. Like, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's that. But listen, LeBron hasn't missed a game all season long. So he's in his last 5 games averaging 26 points per game, 9.8 assists, 8.6 rebounds, 1 block, and 1.6 steals. He's just been doing everything. Anytime you have LeBron on your team, you have a great chance to win. If he didn't already have, 4 MVP awards, I would say he had a great chance to win this year. But I think at this point, it's like any opportunity we have to not give it to LeBron, we're going to take it. And I would expect my highlight of the week, Joel Embiid, to be a front runner this year for the MVP. He's averaging over 29 points a game, almost 11 rebounds, over a steal and over a block per game on a 17-7 team that looks to be among the best in the East. Every week I become more of a believer that he's kind of taken another step in his career. He just seems much more mature this year.
Yeah, I would agree. My highlight of the year is actually going to who probably is going to be the rookie of the year, LaMelo Ball. He finished a game the other night with 24 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds against Houston. He joins, and this is per Elias Sports Bureau, joins elite company with LeBron James and Luka Doncic. The 19-year-old Ball became the 3rd player that age or younger to register multiple games of 20 points, 10 assists, and 5 rebounds.
Wow.
Pretty good.
Wow.
Pretty good company.
Yeah. Well, just to round it out, my low light of the week for the NBA is just going to the LA Clippers. They're 1-3 in the last week since we last talked, including a loss to Sacramento, which is just, I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about Sacramento, but let's be serious here. You're the Clippers. Sacramento shouldn't be beating you. But in fairness, they've been without Paul George in the last 2 games, and his impact on the offense is pretty clear. And that's actually my bigger worry. I'm a little worried the Clippers aren't deep enough this year. Just a little bit worried about that.
Yeah, and finally, I just want to get this in because it's probably the only time we're going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs. They're in first place of the Southwest Division with 14-10 record. I mean, they're 5th place in the West, which I guess is noteworthy. but I don't even know what to say about the Spurs.
It just seems like there's a new team in the like every week we'll look at the division standings, and I feel like every single week there's a new team leading that division. So it just feels like nobody wants to win this division. I guess in that situation you have to give the edge to the Spurs. Greg Popovich has proven himself to be a great coach. I think we forgot about DeMar DeRozan, and he is actually on that team. Is averaging 20 points per game. But the rest of the team, I can honestly, outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, I can honestly say I've never heard of any of the players on their team right now, other than those two guys. So
if I'm the Raptors, I feel they kind of sold their soul to the devil to get Kawhi Leonard for that 1 year, and DeMar DeRozan, I feel like he'd be a pretty good fit on the Raptors right now. I'll say that they could use him, but
yeah, but they couldn't use him when they wanted to win. So
well, they won 50 games, they just didn't.
Yeah, fair.
Win enough, but that's fine. All right, so that's around the NBA, a little taste of what's going on this week in the National Basketball Association. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. Very excited. Their first annual Benchy Awards. We have Least Valuable Player, Give Your Contract Back Award, Freedom Award, Underachiever and Overachiever of the Year, Aaron Donald Award, Most Surprising Team, and Most Disappointing Team. So we're going to get into those. We'll explain to what some of those mean if you're not sure coming up. So stick around. We'll come right back on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
And now back to the Benchwarmers podcast with Lou and Jose.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. The show is flying by so far. Hopefully you're following along on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We touched on Super Bowl 55 in the first hour, along with the NFL awards ceremony in the 2021 Hall of Fame class. Went around the NBA at the top of this hour and kind of got you up to date for everything that's going on there. And now, very exciting, it's time for the first annual Benchy Awards. Benchwarmers, Benchy Awards, get it? We have a couple categories we're going to go through. We'll explain them as we go. We skew negative because, it's more fun. So that's what we did. Maybe we'll change it up next season. We'll see. But so far, I think these are fun categories. So let's just jump right into it. We've promoted this enough throughout the show, so if you don't know what's coming up, you'll figure it out along the way. Least Valuable Player of the 2020 NFL season, Jose. We have some nominees: Carson Wentz, Ezekiel Elliott, James Conner, and Cam Newton. Who do you think was the least valuable player of this past NFL season?
My mind just changed this minute. I was going to say Carson Wentz. I actually think the answer is Cam Newton. He was just so bad. And, Carson Wentz wasn't great either. But I don't know. I just feel like Cam Newton was just atrocious. So I'm going to go with Cam Newton here as my pick.
I think you're right the first time. I think it's Carson Wentz. Cam Newton, I think, is going to win one of the other awards coming up in a little bit. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But I think Carson Wentz, as far as least valuable, especially considering how valuable monetarily he was this year. $33 million a year. He signed. I mean, we have a Give Your Contract Back award coming up. So, I mean, I actually have that number in front of me. He signed a 4-year, $128 million contract with almost $108 million guaranteed. And he was replaced by a first-year rookie at the end of the year.
You've won. You won that argument. You won the argument. I don't know. Maybe it was just the bad taste in my mouth of just seeing how bad Cam Newton was.
In a year when Dak Prescott got hurt, the Cowboys were injured. I mean, the Eagles were injured too, but Carson Wentz was fine, except mentally. I don't know. I don't know what the problem was. It was just the expectations were so much higher, and he was worth so much more from a contract standpoint that, the disparity, because Cam Newton was basically, they picked him up for a Coke and a smile. The Patriots didn't give anything for him. So even though he didn't produce, I felt like what they got for what they kind of got what they paid for. Whereas the Eagles, kind of got a lemon this year for, paying top dollar for a Ferrari, or what they thought was a Ferrari.
And then also when you consider that, and I'm not sure how high the Patriots' expectations were compared to the Eagles coming in this year, I think Carson Wentz is the pick there.
Yeah. So, all right, Carson Wentz, you are the winner of the first ever Least Valuable Player of the Year award. Give Your Contract Back award. So this is sort of self-explanatory. We just touched on Carson Wentz is the front runner in this category. He signed, like I said, $128 million 4-year contract with the Eagles. $16 million signing bonus, $107 million guaranteed, annual salary of $32 million. Also on that list, Jared Goff. Jared Goff also signed a 4-year, $134 million contract, $25 million signing bonus, $110 million guaranteed. Jeez. Let's see who else. We have two more on this. This is going to be tough to beat right there, Jared Goff. Ezekiel Elliott signed a 6-year. I didn't realize it was a 6-year deal. That's insane. 6-year, $90 million contract with the Dallas Cowboys. A reasonable $7.5 million signing bonus and $50 million guaranteed. Finally, J.J. Watt. I feel like I'm not even going to get it. J.J. Watt he's making $5 million. I don't think he has a prayer in this, so I'm not even going to get into the details of his contract. I think it's between those top three.
My pick is Jared Goff.
Yes, okay. Jared, yep.
Okay. Yeah. When you read it, I always think I know how much he's getting paid, and then you say it again, and I'm like, wow, like, it's always shocking. I never hear it, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's always like, what? I've only heard the number 8 times.
The validation of our giving Jared Goff the Give Your Contract Back award this year is validated by the fact that the Rams got rid of his contract. I mean, that was a big part of why he got traded, was that they couldn't afford him and he wasn't worth it. So, Jared Goff, give your contract back. I guess now he's on the Lions. Speaking of the Lions, the Freedom Award. This award goes to the player that we think should be liberated from their present situation of just awful surroundings, and let them spread their wings and fly and be successful somewhere, because it's not happening where they are now. And I say, we talk about Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Freedom Award. I don't know if I guess he sort of already won this in a way.
Yeah, he might be disqualified.
Yeah,
because he's already been traded.
He already did win that. So, all right, we'll get rid of Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford was an honorary mention. Other than that, the other Matt Ryan, we could put Julio Jones in here, I think, instead of Matt Stafford. So I'll put Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Aaron Donald, or Deshaun Watson.
So just based on how young the player is, I want to say Deshaun Watson.
I agree.
He just, Matt Ryan, at least you got to a Super Bowl. At least you were an MVP. He's had a great career. If he doesn't win a Super Bowl, it's like, I guess there'll be a nice, but what if? Same thing with Julio Jones, no Super Bowl. Everyone knows they're great players. Deshaun Watson has 10 years to really, maybe even more, to kind of take his career to another level. So give me Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think it's undoubtedly Deshaun Watson. I mean, in a year where the Texans won 4 games, he lost his best player in DeAndre Hopkins.
A terrible trade.
In one of the worst trades we've ever seen. He somehow was able to complete 70% of his passes, throw for 4,800 yards, and he threw 33 interceptions, or 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. That's a Pro Bowl season on a team that was one of the worst in the league. So, I think it's let Deshaun Watson go before he becomes, the next David Carr. The Texans have to they just have to gut everything and start from the absolute bottom and let Deshaun run. Get a king's ransom for him, like we've talked about in recent weeks, and just start over. So Deshaun Watson, we have awarded you the Freedom Award, even though the Houston Texans have not yet. But here's hoping. Next up, Underachiever of the Year. Now, this is sort of self-explanatory. There's some good candidates on this list, boy. Cam Newton, the aforementioned Cam Underachiever of the Year, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, James Conner. James Conner also making the list for non-quarterbacks. This, I'm going to tell you right now.
This is a tough one.
I think it's down to Cam Newton and Dwayne Haskins. I think are the underachievers of the year.
Okay, give me explanation. You gotta talk to me here because I don't know what to do.
Cam Newton, like you said before, Cam Newton for all the expectations. He's with Bill Belichick. He's supposed to sort of save that franchise this season, and it started off pretty good. He was running. They were doing sort of the run and gun that they could never do with Brady, and then he just basically fell off a cliff and has been okay. So for 2020. He had a 65% completion ratio, which is pretty good for Cam Newton.
Well, we throw it 2 yards down the field. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, he only out of that 65% of the 2,657 yards he threw for, he also threw for 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Now, that's pretty horrible, but I do have to include the fact that he did run for 12 rushing touchdowns. So that does and almost 600 yards rushing.
So to me, and maybe this gives our pick away, because to me it becomes down between Drew Lock and Dwayne Haskins, right? So since we both named Dwayne Haskins, maybe that's the pick. But I just want to throw Drew Lock out there because, look, Dwayne Haskins, he got pulled after, 4 games, and then he came back for the final 3 games of the season. So he almost didn't really get a chance to underachieve because he was so bad. But we look at Drew Lock. 13 games played this season and 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. It's pretty bad, but I still probably would lean Dwayne Haskins just for it was all yours. All you had to do was not suck. They literally had to bring, I forget who the other person who started instead of Alex Smith. God, why can't I remember his name? But there was another quarterback.
Kyle Allen.
Kyle Allen. All you had to do was be average.
Yeah. And
you probably would have a job. He couldn't even do that. So my pick is Dwayne Haskins. I think it's
Dwayne Haskins. He played 7 games, 61% completion. He threw for 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions on a team that made the playoffs.
Yeah. And you can't say he didn't have weapons. Terry McLaurin's one of the best young receivers in the game. And then, of course, we already know Antonio Gibson's a good player, too. Alex Smith was doing way more. And so was Kyle Allen. Way more with what he had. And
you're a first-round draft pick. You're supposed to be
that too.
Competent. You had a new coach, and that this was your time, and he just lost it. So now I think he's a backup on Pittsburgh with
1-year deal with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Shows how bad Mason Rudolph is.
Well, that's true. Yeah, Mason Rudolph is pretty good. All right, so Dwayne Haskins, underachiever of the year. Congratulations, I guess. Overachiever of the year. Obviously, self-explanatory. Justin Herbert.
Positive one.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, James Robinson, Kirk Cousins, DK Metcalf.
So to me, I'm going to go with James Robinson here. Undrafted. No one had even heard of this player coming into the year. Justin Herbert was number 6 overall pick. Kirk Cousins, established NFL quarterback, basically on the borderline of top 10. And DK Metcalf was just an athletic freak. James Robinson, maybe the 3rd best running back in the NFL this year. So I'm going to go with James Robinson. It's my pick.
Yeah, at first I was thinking Justin Herbert, but I forgot that James Robinson was undrafted. And I think he led the league in. Did he lead the league in scrimmage yards? He almost.
He might have been up there.
He was near the top of the list, if anything. But yeah, I forgot that he was undrafted, and he was also, by the way, on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah. So that's who.
Justin Herbert is surrounded by talent, top to bottom. His coach wasn't that great, but then again, neither was James Robinson's. So it has to be James Robinson. I agree. He had 1,000 yards rushing. He had 7 touchdowns, and he had I can't find his receiving yards. I don't know.
344 yards receiving.
Okay,
on 49 receptions, another 3 touchdowns there. So a 10 touchdown season, nearly over 1,400 yards from scrimmage. You can't really ask for much more than that for a guy you weren't expecting anything from because no one drafted him.
Right. Yeah, he's a beast when he runs. He's 5'10", 220, but he plays even bigger than that. He's impressive to watch.
Yes.
All right, so James Robinson, congratulations. Overachiever of the year. Keep it up.
Our first positive award.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Freedom Award's not too bad.
That's a little negative, though. Because you're in a bad place. We're trying to set you free and let you go be positive somewhere else. But it's predicated on being on an awful team.
That's
All right, next up, Aaron Donald Award. And we explained this a little earlier in the show. The Aaron Donald Award is essentially the Defensive Player of the Year award because we decided that any year that Aaron Donald is playing, it's kind of like if you change the MVP trophy in the NBA to the Michael Jordan Award. Like every year that Michael Jordan played, he should have been the MVP, but he wasn't because people got tired of it. So Aaron Donald could be the Defensive Player of the Year every single year that he plays, that he's reasonably healthy. So we decided he's sort of the free space on the bingo board. We're going to take him off the ballot and just name the award after him. So give somebody else a chance. And the nominees for Aaron Donald Award are Shaq Barrett, TJ Watt, Fred Warner, Xavier Howard, and Jalen Ramsey.
To me, this is an easy choice. It's TJ Watt. He should. I said earlier in an earlier show that TJ Watt should have been Defensive Player of the Year, or at least I thought he should have been. Xavier Howard, I think he had 10 interceptions this year. Jalen Ramsey, we saw him shut down players. Fred Warner, I love Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the game. But TJ Watt is just a force of nature out there, and I think he's the easy choice for me.
Yeah, I was going to go Xavier Howard because he was first-team All-Pro this year, Pro Bowl, obviously, 10 interceptions. But I think by virtue of having Jalen Ramsey on this list also, it sort of waters down Xavier Howard's impressiveness, I guess, because Jalen Ramsey also had a great season, and we saw what he did. I mean, just what he did to DK Metcalf alone was unbelievable. So, yeah, I'll concede here and say TJ Watt. TJ Watt he might end up being better than JJ Watt at some point.
I mean, we may have to in the future. I mean, because Aaron Donald's not going to get any younger, we may have to rename this to the TJ Watt Award. I feel like this is what's going to happen. We're just going to keep naming it.
That's fair. All right, TJ Watt, you won the first ever Aaron Donald Award on the first annual Benchies. Most surprising team this year: Dolphins, Browns, Bucks, Buffalo Bills.
That's a tough one. I guess being that the Bucks won the Super Bowl, you kind of have to lean that way. But they did bring in Tom Brady, so it's like, is it really that surprising that Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl?
I'm down. I think it's the Bucks and the Browns. I think it comes down to. I think because the Dolphins, had the Dolphins made the playoffs, I would probably be leaning them more. And the Bills, I feel like the Bills aren't surprising. I feel like we kind of all felt like they were going to be good outside of with the Tom Brady Patriots being kind of gone and put to rest.
I want the Browns to win something, so I'll choose the Browns as my winner. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way.
No, you should have, because it's funny. The Browns, I agree, are the most surprising because they made it and they were within. Man, they were just so close to beating the Chiefs in that game, and I wonder what they could have done against the Bills and then possibly even against the Buccaneers.
Kind of just makes you wonder when you look back at them almost beating them, not to get into too deep a discussion, but them almost beating the Chiefs. How hurt was Patrick Mahomes down the stretch of this season?
Yeah, that's Chad Henne, the hero of that game. So Browns, you won something. You won the most surprising team in the first annual Benchy Awards. So congratulations. Take that. We don't have a trophy or anything, but you're used to that. Finally, most disappointing team. This is just a sad list of players with 49ers, Cowboys, Seahawks, Patriots, Raiders, and honorary mention are the Philadelphia Eagles.
Like a trail of broken hearts here.
I want to just this list just makes me sad looking at it. So Jose, who do you think? Because I'm not. This is going to be tough. The most disappointing team this year. Because right off the bat, I'll just say that it's tough with injuries.
Yeah.
Injuries sort of give you they don't excuse it, but they at least give you a good reason. So that's hard. It's hard for me to think 49, although they're disappointing because they made the Super Bowl last year. I mean, they were without their best defensive player the entire year. They were without their quarterback for half the year. They were
Deebo Samuel's basically injured the whole year.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really tough. My initial pick was the 49ers, but then I started considering the things that you're saying. And I kind of put the Cowboys in the same spot, right?
Yep.
Where you lose Dak Prescott, you lose the Tyrann Mathieu, Tyron Smith, and I think who was the other? There was like Zach. There was another. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Zach Martin.
Zach Martin, yeah. They just were dealing with injuries all over the place.
Yeah, keep spots. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I actually have the Seahawks here as my most disappointing team because there's no real injury excuse for them. They had their quarterback who was on an MVP pace early in the year. They had, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Like, they were put together to win, and they lost to the Rams. It just, to me, the Seahawks are the most disappointing because they didn't go as far as people thought they could have gone.
Yeah, I think it's down to the Seahawks and the Raiders for me because, the Seahawks, you're right. They went 12-4, and I picked them to go to the Super Bowl this year. I thought they were going to play the Chiefs, and they lost to the Rams. I did wonder, what that NFC divisional game would have looked like if it was the Seahawks playing the Packers instead of the wounded Rams with, John out there, and then a hampered, nine-fingered Jared Goff on his last leg, ironically, with the team. But then you look at the Raiders, and it's after that, I feel like after that win against the Chiefs, where they just blew them out, they won 40 points they put up on them. I thought that they could have done more, and they didn't even make granted they were in a tough division, but they ended up 8-8.
This is the case of a team. The Raiders are a case of a team that kind of blew their load too early. I hate to be, nasty about it, but they just kind of got too high too quickly and just were like, hey, this is, you beat the Chiefs. It's week 7, and it's when your Super Bowl is week 7 and you have 10 weeks left to play, that's a problem. And they needed to be. I think they maybe didn't even realize that they didn't even believe they could win that game, and it becomes like such a shock, and then you forget that you have the rest of the season to play. The Raiders are a strong pick. If you're really want, because I had the Raiders being second place in the division, making the playoffs. I do. If you want to go Raiders,
no, I think you're right. I think with Seattle, they did have. Nobody expected the Raiders to make the Super Bowl. Seattle, I thought was going to make the Super Bowl, so. To see them kind of fall and the way that they fell, and especially considering the pace that they started off with, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was the MVP of the first half of the season, and then just nothing.
It's the early pace that really, because you still had a 12-4 year. I think the Raiders were 7-9 or in that area, and 8-8. So in that area, but not I guess not a losing record. So, Seahawks were still 12-4, but expectations were just much higher.
That makes it worse. They won their division, that incredibly difficult division.
Yeah.
And somehow still just
and didn't win one playoff game. Not win one playoff game, especially you're at home for that playoff game. I know it's COVID, so it's not the same thing, but still, I don't know. Yeah. We'll take the Seahawks here.
Yeah, Seahawks should win, unfortunately. But Seattle Seahawks, most disappointing team of the 2020 season. Congratulations, I guess. I don't know. T-shirt or something.
So our least valuable player, Carson Wentz, give back your contract award, Jared Goff. Our Freedom Award, player that most deserves to be traded, Deshaun Watson. Underachiever of the Year, Dwayne Haskins. Overachiever of the Year, James Robinson. Aaron Donald Award, TJ Watt. Most surprising team, Cleveland Browns, and most disappointing team, the Seattle Seahawks. And those, my friends, are the first annual Benchies.
It's lovely. We can post those on social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make some noise about it. So all right. Well, good show. That's going to do it. So stick around. We might be taking a week off to kind of regroup because we're coming up on a full year, our first full season, if you will, since that's all the rage now with TV and everything. So we're going to go by seasons. Our first season's coming to a close. We're on week 43, obviously, of 52. So we're trying to fine-tune things and make things better. So we might be off a week. We're probably going to take next week off as sort of a second bye week. We had one earlier in the year. So I think we deserve a bye week. We're going to retool and kind of get things together. So for those of you that do follow along on iHeartRadio podcasting or Amazon podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have some new information, but we're going to be a week off. So stick around. Hopefully we'll get you back coming up the week after that. So that's going to do it. So for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.